the bottle deposit was not supposed to be a 2-part episode originally. It originally was supposed to be just a half-an-hour episode, but after the table read, it was coming out to about 18 minutes, which is obviously just maybe like 3 or 4 minutes short of what it needed to be. So obviously you couldn't cheat and drag out a couple scenes or whatnot. It was frustrating because they needed something else in there to fill up the time. Well, then they thought, okay, maybe we can cut a couple things out and put a couple of other things in we have for ideas, but just the back and forth, this wasn't working out. So with the additional scene ideas, it was coming out to be enough to be an hour episode. So without taking anything out, they added in and made another 2-part episode, even though we just had a 2-part episode that happened on the previous disc with the 2-part episode of the Cadillac. So then, of course, we get with the bottle deposit, which I thought was a pretty good episode. We also have an appearance from Brad Garrett, who plays Robert and Everybody Loves Raymond. Haven't seen too many episodes, but my fiance does binge watch it here and there, so I've seen a handful of episodes from there as well. Kramer and Newman come up with an idea to get around a bottle deposit scam by returning bottles to get more for the price than they would do it in New York. Elaine and Peterman are supposed to be, doing some stuff with the JFK auction. Of course, Jerry's car lands him into trouble because he took it to a not so trustworthy mechanic. And George, he's in a bind at work. But yet he does not quite understand what he's doing, but somehow it gets done, which doesn't happen until we get to part 2 of this episode. But let's focus on part 1 of the bottle deposit. So, the episode, I believe, starts out with George at the Yankees, and Mr. Wilhelm's telling him this stuff. George asks if he can repeat something. Mr. Wilhelm says that he feels he's been repeating a lot of things with George several times lately, and he's sounding annoyed with him. So then he says that he's got another assignment for him. But then he walks into the bathroom. George, though, waits for him to come back out. Time goes by, and then George walks into the bathroom. As he's walking into the bathroom, Wilhelm is walking out, and he's basically saying, well, there you got it, George, or something like that. Make this top priority. George realizes that Mr. Wilhelm walked into the stall, still talking about this project, but walks out, and George has no idea what he has to do. What this project is all about. It's a big top priority project. But of course, he can't, ask him, say, hey, I thought you were going to the bathroom. I didn't hear anything you said. He's afraid of upsetting Wilhelm again and him getting in trouble because Wilhelm's just saying that George hasn't been paying attention to it lately. So then George tries to start figuring out what the heck he's supposed to do. I believe then, I think the next hint he got was that, haven't you not gone to payroll yet? And then, so he goes down to payroll trying to see if he can get out of him. And he just tells the payroll clerk that he is there for this big project that Mr. Wilhelm assigned him for. And then he goes, well, I'm not sure what you're talking about. He goes, we can call Mr. Wilhelm and tell him, trying to get Mr. Wilhelm to tell George what's all going on. Well, him to tell him what's all going on so George can ask him what he said. So he calls Mr. Wilhelm, and then George, he says, okay, you were right. He goes, just look around, get what you need. And George's like, oh, he's told you. What did he tell you? He goes, look, I'm sorry, you were right, okay? Just do what you want and basically get out of here. So George couldn't get around that. So then obviously later Wilhelm says, have you gone to payroll? He says, yes, he did. And he goes, now you're ready to go downtown. And then, of course, George doesn't know what it means there, but that was the last part from part 1. So Jerry's storyline and Elaine's storyline kind of collided in this 2-parter. So, Peterman was invited to go to some big JFK auction. And there was something there that he really wanted, which was an old set of JFK's golf clubs. But unfortunately, he was going to be out of town. So he asked if Elaine can go for him and bid on those clubs for him. And he said he's okay with going no more than $10,000 for a bid. He had the secretary leave her a check. So Jerry goes with her. And, of course, who do they run into before the bidding starts? Sue Ellen Mischke. First time we've seen her since the Caddy episode, whenever the Braless Wonder wore a bra as a top, caused that accident, and they didn't win the case because she pretended she couldn't put the bra on, even though I thought that was still stupid. You know, she put the bra on while wearing a leotard. She was wearing it as a top without an outfit. You know, it was just, I don't know. I didn't get that. Anyways, still a good episode. But, so basically she's implying that, you know, Elaine won't be able to afford anything, you know, from that price. When it comes to bidding on JFK's golf clubs, Sue Ellen bid, I think it was like $6,000. I put a bid down for $6,000. Elaine put down the bid for $8,000, and then it then turned to a bidding war back and forth with Elaine and Sue Ellen, and Elaine ended up getting the golf clubs for $20,000, which of course Peterman was upset about because that was double their budget. But Elaine didn't have the clubs; they were still in Jerry's car. Jerry's car, the engine was acting up, and it found out because Kramer and Newman had borrowed his car recently, and it was there was a bunch of like food stored in it and whatnot, which was weird. I don't know why they didn't just throw it away or whatnot. So because of that, Jerry has to go take it to see his mechanic Tony, who is very obsessive over Jerry's car and likes to, you know, point out the little things that are wrong with it. Even though this really came down just to get the engine checked out. But of course Tony's played again by Brad Garrett, who played Robert, and everybody loves Raymond. So he's trying to tell him, you know, to actually rotate the tires, like all this other stuff. But Jerry kept telling Tony all that's wrong is the engine. It's all he wants done. But he keeps like getting on Jerry for other stuff that he's not doing. And then Elaine, meanwhile, is trying to get those golf clubs back, but I don't know why she didn't take them whenever they got home the other night. So Peter keeps saying, "Where are the clubs?" And Elaine says that they should be coming today. And then, of course, Jerry's car is still the mechanic. So then Jerry, lost my train of thought there, crap. Gets a call from Tony saying, "You better come down here." And he comes down and starts basically saying that there's a lot more wrong with Jerry's car, and Jerry wants nothing to do with it. But then Tony's just pushing him to, you know, do all this other stuff. Finally, and Elaine was going to come down to meet Jerry to get the golf clubs. And he goes, "You know what?" He goes, "Tony," he goes, "I'll pay my bill." He goes, "But I just want my car back. I'm going to take my business somewhere else." As Elaine's arriving, this was actually the end of part one, Tony comes speeding out of the garage and drives off with the car. Now, what happened with that and why Tony did that, we won't find out until the next episode, but he's a crazy mechanic. But the main story behind the bottle deposit was the story of Kramer first was telling Jerry not to throw away his empty bottles, saying you can return them and get a 5-cent refund. Of course, you know, Newman becomes obsessed with that and sees other things on there, and he finds out that Michigan, you can return the bottles for 10 cents. And he's like, we can, you know, load these up and drive out to Michigan. And Kramer's like, nope, not going to happen. He goes, you know, with all the fuel expenses and tolls and everything, it's not worth it. The rental fees for an 18-wheeler, plus two, it's a scam because I think some places say it's illegal to bring other out-of-state bottles and to get, you know, refunds on it. So then Newman was trying to crunch up the numbers and realize, you know, their expenses for the trip, if they'd be worth it. But then he realizes that Mother's Day is coming up. And I guess since Newman works for the post office, usually on holidays, there's a couple extra trucks that have a route and delivers like a bulk order of mail to someplace in Michigan. On Mother's Day, though, there's a 5th truck, and Newman has access to that 5th truck. So they have a free truck, so that cuts down the traveling expenses. So they're in business. So then they collected bottles, and they're on the road to Michigan to get their refunds and make their returns and get money. How does that work out, though? Will in fact Newman and Kramer make it to Michigan and get that refund? Will George ever figure out what this project is that he's terrified to ask Wilhelm that he didn't get any information while he was in the bathroom. Will also Elaine get those golf clubs back that were in the back seat of Jerry's car? And why on earth did Tony Abato, played by Brad Garrett, drive off with Jerry's car that he obsessed over? We'll have to find out next, guys, in part 2 of The Bottle Deposit in the next video. So, guys, what are your thoughts on part 1 of The Bottle Deposit? Please leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. And be sure, as always, to slap a like on the video, subscribe for more content on my channel, and follow me on Twitter as well, at DemandAirboy93. Till then, guys, I'm checking out. I'll see you guys later in part 2 of The Bottle Deposit. Peace out, everybody.